This is Talking Sense with Dollar Bill. I'm David, Common Sense. Complicated issues like business operations and taxes require complex explanations. Talking Sense with Dollar Bill will explain these issues in plain language and have fun doing it. We must disclose that all opinions expressed on the show are of the hosts, and we advise that you consult a tax professional or attorney regarding any financial or business decisions. We always encourage your questions. Email them to us at info@talkingsensewithdollarbill.com. That's sense with a C. And now, without any further ado, I give you your host, Dollar Bill.
And welcome to another program.
Welcome, listeners, to another exciting episode of Talking Sense with Dollar Bill. I'm your co-host, Dave, Common Sense, and as always, it is my pleasure to be here with my very good friend, Dollar Bill. How you doing today?
Very good.
Wonderful. Today we've got a fantastic episode lined up for you. We're thrilled to be joined by Brian Phillips, the innovative mind behind Harvis, Inc., a cutting-edge human resources company revolutionizing how businesses approach HR. Harvis, Inc. isn't just any HR company. They're redefining the field with their forward-thinking solutions and personalized approach to human resources management. From comprehensive recruitment strategies to effective employee engagement tools, Harvis, Inc. is setting new standards in the industry. So stay tuned as we dive into Brian's journey, the story behind Harvis, Inc., and explore the unique offerings that make them a leader in the HR space. Let's get started.
And this is Dollar Bill suggesting that I would like to know how you developed the name Harvis.
Well, thanks, Bill. Glad to be here. The way we developed that name was thinking about how pharmaceuticals are developed and how the drug and the results are kind of smashed together. And we came up with Harvis, Human Resource Services. And Harvis is Human Resource Service, Harvis, change a vowel, and there you have it.
Well,
that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it intrigued me. And the method where I get involved with many different types of businesses, and one of the things I usually want to know is how does one come up with their name. Now, once you've got the name, now you're trying to enhance the brand. And from enhancing the brand, what are some of your motivations in developing the company, as far as getting the information out to the public that you are a human resources corporation?
Well, we really don't advertise all that much, which could be a bad thing for us. So most of our business does come in through referrals from current clients and referrals from other business partners like accountants, CPAs, insurance agents, and other consultants. So the other source would be people who we have served in the past. So they leave one company, go to the next, and they want to bring us with them. In terms of our brand, we're known as a pure human resource service, whereas we're not requiring you to bundle services. You don't need to buy payroll, you don't need to buy insurance, and we're simply there to provide pure HR advice, set the foundation so the companies can grow or maintain their current status, and make sure the workplace is better, which is our tagline. We make workplaces better. And I think we can all agree not every workplace is great, so we try to make them better.
Well, that sounds very interesting. And I'm thinking of retirement plans when it comes to HR, whether it's a 457 or a 403 or a 401 or all these wonderful numbers that nobody really knows what they relate to.
Right.
Do you have a lot of exposure in that particular area?
Well, those sound like retirement plans, so we're not experts in the retirement investment arena for simple plans and SEPs and 401ks. But with what we do, because, again, we're not focusing on payroll or benefits or insurances, we know a lot of partners who are experts in those areas. So when we're working with a client, they might ask us if we can help refer them to someone who can help them put a plan together or evaluate their current
And then
situation.
you would work with that consultant to ensure that the information or the data you're gathering is meeting the compliance requirements relative to the HR issues.
Right. Most of the retirement or benefit or payroll issues, they do touch human resources, and you need to have the right framework in place. So when you're looking at having a payroll provider, you don't just want somebody who could run your payroll and give you W-2s. They need to perhaps have a time and attendance platform that matches what your employees need, so they can track that time according to wage and hour. And you need to either do that on paper or electronically. And then the retirement, some companies might want you to have a way that when you run their payroll, you can submit those withdrawals and the withholdings automatically, or maybe you're going to cut a check. So some of that even connects to their bookkeeper or their accountant who might be involved.
Right. Now, when you talk about the human resources acquisition of individuals that are going to fill the needs of the company, in other words, seeking the appropriate employee for the tasks that you want to assist the company in accomplishing. Is that more in line with the specifics of the HR activity that you're talking about, is securing employees that will fill those needs?
Sure. About half of our business would be considered screening, recruiting, sourcing job candidates. The term in the industry is called recruitment process outsourcing. So we do that really customized the way the client would like it, so we could help plug into the way they would like to recruit. And we do a really good job at it. The other half of the HR services we provide would be federal and state compliance, the policy manuals, and helping the owners or the person responsible for running the company, help them get their questions answered so they can move to the next step in the process. So hiring people is important, to have the right people in the right seats on the bus.
And the development of employee handbooks?
That's critical. There's no law that says you need to have an employee handbook, but it certainly makes sense. As you know, Dollar Bill, as an accountant, you need to have certain things in place as a business. So as an employer, you also need to have certain things in place. And nobody goes into business to become an employer. They go into business to do what they want to do. So we look at the human resource arena almost the same way an accountant would. So you're looking for certain things to be in place. So are we. When we work with a new client, they might have an idea in their mind where they want a policy manual updated, or they might not be sure what they need. So in those cases, we might do an HR audit in the same way an accountant would do an audit. And we'll look at their wage and hour, make sure that they're getting time tracked for employees, that they're addressing questions from employees properly, that all the ABC, the alphabet soup of compliance is being handled.
My expectation in today's environment, with the number of people that are working from home, this ability to establish the criteria and the expectation that people are performing the functions that you expect them to achieve are getting more and more challenging to substantiate. Is there a part of this arena that you are able to give us some insight as to what's occurring as a result of these home workers?
Well, that's a great topic in today's employment arena. I remember in one of your other episodes, you talked about the COVID episode and how there were so many changes that happened there. The telecommuting concept really started to take off right after COVID or during COVID, because companies thought it was impossible to be productive at home. But the truth is you can be if you have the right tools. So a lot of the things that the companies are looking for is productivity when it comes down to it. The rubber has to hit the road and you need to be effective and efficient. So performance reviews could be important, but the reality is, unfortunately, some companies like the idea of a performance review, but then they never execute on them. And the employees are waiting for their boss to give them some advice, good or bad, and they never get it. And then that intent is great, but they don't follow through.
Well, I hear you. I hear you so strongly, because so many people are trying to find out how well they're doing, and nobody is giving them the evidence, and they're not really securing the methods of identifying whether or not they're achieving what it is they're expected to do, because the criteria, when you look at an employee handbook, you have to show up at 7 a.m. and you can leave at 4. That's not exactly a good training manual as it relates to what an individual is expected to accomplish with the employment. And I find that the challenges of getting solid training programs in place that allow the employee to become more competent and more satisfied in what they do and how they do it is a focus that we haven't yet achieved.
I would agree. Another tool employers will use will be the job description, which everybody knows the concept of the job description.
Sure.
And like a resume, there are only about 1,000 different ways to make a job description. And some companies, again, there's no requirement to have a job description, but it makes sense to have one that is updated because of ADA and other situations that can come up with employees. And again, focusing back on wage increases, performance reviews, well, it's not on the job description, so I didn't need to do it. Well, that can change. You know, really you need to do whatever you need to do, because if you have a job and the boss tells you to go up and fix the air conditioning on the roof, that might not be on the job description, but maybe you need to do that anyway.
And well, that draws another challenge into whether or not they're eligible or capable, and whether or not they were trained to do that. You can't expect somebody to do something that they're not properly trained for. And that's where it gets a little more sticky in terms of what is it you expect of me and what is it I can expect of you. That is such a challenge in today's environment, because first thing you hear, not my job. Excuse me. Your job is to perform in the function and the direction that I instruct you to do if I'm your superior. However, even in my case, you know, if I have to take the garbage out, I take the garbage out. It doesn't matter if I own the company. You have to have some flexibility in these particular areas, yet I find that more and more circumstances, especially if you get unionized, it is very specific about what you can touch or what you can't touch. I've had occasions where I've been in conferences in Georgia and in different states where you cannot plug an item into an outlet unless you have an engineer come to that space to plug that item in, because it's in the contract that you don't have the right to put the plug in the outlet.
Yeah, it can be a bottleneck. And one of the, if I can even go back to the question you had about hiring people, getting the right people in the seats on the bus, the person who doesn't interview people every day, they don't understand when we're trying to screen a candidate, when we say no experience is required or we need a certain level of experience or a certification. Think of it as brain surgery. You know, some jobs you can learn on the job. Other jobs you need to hit the ground running.
Sure.
You need to have a good brain surgeon. A pilot, his job is pretty easy until the last 10 seconds when they're landing the plane.
Right.
And you need to really know what you need to do. So experience does matter. And in some cases, you're hiring for experience. And even if somebody has the best willpower and the best intent, they might not be qualified. And the employer needs to see that and not let their emotions take hold and hire somebody because they're scraping and they're desperate to fill a seat.
In my career, I've had many instances where somebody came in and said, yeah, I'm fully qualified. And the minute they start to actually execute what it is you expected them to achieve, well, how do I do that? Well, wait a minute. I thought you were qualified.
Well, some of that comes back to interviewing. There are various interviewing techniques that we use. The basic interviewing, the pass-fail type would be, do you have a driver's license? Yes or no? Can you work 7 to 3? Yes or no? Those types of interview questions only tell you enough to basically screen somebody at a very high level. The higher level screening techniques that we use would be competency, behavioral, and situational interviewing. And in those interview techniques, you're actually, for example, if you need somebody who has thick skin or somebody who knows QuickBooks, maybe you need QuickBooks Online, not QuickBooks Desktop. So we might ask them, okay, so you have on your resume that you've used QuickBooks Online. Tell me how you would set up a new account in the chart of accounts using QuickBooks Online. What are the steps you would go through?
Interesting.
And if they look at you and it takes them a while to understand, or they say, well, I haven't used QuickBooks Online in a while, then you don't need to embarrass them. You just move on to the next question.
Yeah.
And then after you have 10 people or 4 people who've gone through that line of questioning and it's apples to apples, it makes it easier to see who rose to the top. So interviewing is, anybody can interview, but you need to know how to do it the right way.
But even the interview person, the person who's conducting the interview, it's almost in my mind like a programmer that I talk to and say, I want the program to produce this. And the programmer looks at me and says, what do you mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. And it's because the comprehension is 2 different vocabularies. And so to get to the right spot, either one party has to train the other, or the other party has to learn what it is that they need to do. And they don't always mesh as well as you would like.
That's precisely it. We had a client who basically did automation engineering, and we were hiring electrical engineers and mechanical design engineers and automation engineers. And I basically sat down with the owner. I said, okay, what do I need to know to be dangerous? What are the things that you want them to tell me so I could tell you? And the owner helped me to understand what I needed to know to get him the right people. And they hired a number of engineers through us.
So as I talk about it too, and it just expands my own impression of, I've got electrical engineers, I've got design engineers, I've got a whole array of different types of engineers, and each one has a different talent with a different expectation. And I want to find a geological engineer that can tell me how to fix my stormwater in Honesdale, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
It just is so unique, and trying to convey to the HR provider, there's an obligation here on the part of the employer as well as on the part of the potential provider of the HR services.
Right. Now, we're not a staffing agency. So when we do work for a company like that, we're working for them just like their own HR department would. So they can hire as many people as they want. We just charge by the hour. And we've filled snow shoveling positions, truck driving positions. We've found attorneys for people. We've found production people, bookkeepers, you know, the whole expanse.
Sounds better than Angie's List.
We probably are. And way back in the day, I was in the staffing industry, and the coveted product we had at that point were all the cards. When the people came in, we would flip through the cards to see who had the right skills. Now you have technology, you have Indeed, you have all these other platforms.
Sure.
So the data is fresh all the time. So every search we do is a fresh new search, and we find great people.
Brian, give us a sense of the overview of the core services that Harvis Inc. provides. What sets your approach apart from the traditional HR firms?
Well, as I mentioned, we are a pure HR company, so we're not requiring anybody to come in with the intent of changing their payroll or their benefits or their insurances. Some of our clients even have an HR manager or two, or it might be the owner's spouse or an office manager that's been there for a long time. They're loyal, but they might have some gaps in their knowledge base. So we'll come in and help them with the things they think they need help with. They might just have a few questions and they want to bounce some ideas around. Or they might say, you know, we just know that something's not right. We're turning people over, or there's some conflict, or we think there might be some risk over here because here's what's happening, and they'll tell us the scenario. And 9 out of 10 times there are compliance issues. I mean, let's be honest, every business has multiple compliance issues. And
Sure.
the wage and hour and OSHA, they're not there trying to knock down your door. But you get one upset employee, chances are if they file a complaint, that's going to start the ball rolling. So the idea, in my interpretation of what we do as HR, is we get the business to a compliant level, at the compliant level that they want to be at. And we help them just to address their priorities. Now, we can tell them all the things that they should have, but think of it like pushing a string. You know, if you see the value in accounting in certain aspects, a client might not still have a bookkeeping platform, or they still might not keep their receipts. So we are looking for companies who really are intent on making things better, and they'll take some advice and they'll be open about the things that they might need to change.
It seems employee engagement seems to be a significant focus at Harvis. What are some of the unique strategies that you employ to keep employees motivated and satisfied?
Okay. Are you referring to employees of our clients or employees at Harvis?
Employees of your clients.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting response because some of the clients, we don't work with the employees at all. So in those cases, we'll be working with the owner or their CFO or their office manager.
Oh, I see.
And we're working through that person just to help them as a mentor or as a fractional as needed HR support or HR director. So they might call when things come up and they just want to know, what can I do? Do you have a form for this situation that might be developing? Maybe they want us to come in to help talk with an employee about a disciplinary situation, or somebody who's going to go on medical leave and they're not sure if they're entitled to leave or not. So we'll come in and help with that. Other clients we have, they want us to be proactive, not reactive. So those proactive clients will look us in the eye and say, we want you to be totally accountable for all of it,
Wow.
or most of it. In that case, we're in charge of recruiting for every position in the company. We're there maybe on site for a day or two a week, part-time, And in those cases, the employees do have our phone number they can call.
Oh, wow.
They can email. We even recommend for other clients who want more of a part-time representation
Sure.
we'll set up an HR email that's on their account. So they always have records of everything that happens.
Well, I hear a lot of complexity in
Yeah.
in those options, and I'm wondering, do you focus on a particular industry, or like I get involved in municipalities, and I don't know whether you get involved with municipalities relative to how they conduct their HR activities. But you look at the municipal industry, you look at the drug and alcohol industry, you look at distribution companies, the industries that are available, are you focused on any, or are you flexible to adapting or adopting to the particular industry that you're working with?
Great question. In fact, all the three you mentioned, we do work with municipalities. We also work with distribution. And we've had a few drug and alcohol clients who were, long-term care or consulting, community outward facing and awareness. So with each of those types of businesses, they have a lot of similarities where there might be the minimum wage coming into effect, and you need to have a certain communication with, again, policies and what's expected of employees, because you're holding your employees accountable. They're holding the company or the employer accountable as well. But then there are also going to be some niche differences with each industry. So a daycare might have certain issues that they need to contend with, like background checks for new hires. That wouldn't apply to a manufacturer necessarily, but then the manufacturer is going to have OSHA training on other things. So we do dabble, and that's the point. Everything is very customized with what we do, so that each of our clients comes away knowing more than before we were there, and we help serve their needs.
There's a number, it's called ISO 9000 and ISO something else, and
9001.
Yeah.
Sure.
and compliance with those particular programs, I'm sure, is something that you also have to address.
We actually are not experts in that area, and it's dangerous to say you know a lot about something if you don't, because
sure.
Our clients are paying us to hit the ground running.
Sure.
So we know some people who can help with that, but
Okay.
we're not specifically. In a lot of those cases, we'll turn it over to them.
So your HR application is a format of consulting and cooperation with the access to other individuals that can highlight or enhance the HR needs of the particular company.
Yes, so on a day-to-day basis, you have the normal grind of people calling off, employee conflicts. You have other initiatives like rolling out a new vacation policy or a new benefit plan, maybe new uniforms, so all these different things that employees are involved with when usually the owner or the office manager is helping. Some of that will touch the employees or the HR department. So the HR person, if they don't have someone there, inevitably something gets pushed off. So we're there to help with those day-to-day HR issues, or structural, strategic, and then functional aspects of being an employer.
I want to get personal just for a minute here and learn a little bit about your journey, Brian. What inspired you to found Harvis, and how did your background lead you to this venture?
Well, I can say I was less than an average student in high school and in college.
Okay.
So I learned a lot with one of my first professional positions, which was with a local staffing agency. And after about 5 years working in the staffing agency, interviewing people at a very high level to send them out in different types of work, I was assigned to another client that we worked at where there were a couple hundred temporary employees. And during that work, I learned a lot about being an employer, compliance, and because we were a staffing agency, there was a whole other level of federal and state compliance that applied to staffing agencies
Sure.
above normal employers. So then I doubled down and asked the boss, why don't we get into employee leasing? And he said, good idea. Why don't you start looking at that?
Oh, wow.
So a short time later, a good friend of the boss came in, and the company grew 5 years after that to the point where we had a full payroll service, benefits, brokerage services, and then HR. And I was a part of the team that basically selected the software that we used to run all the payroll, pay all the taxes, handle the HR. And I always felt that although that was a great model and the clients got a great value, I saw a real need to have more intense support with the HR side, because in one example, we had a client who our goal, that was back, almost 20 years ago, when the idea was, let's go paperless. So the idea of going paperless, we had a software platform with Excel, so you could send your hours electronically, and it took just a few minutes. But the one client that I was working with didn't know how to use Excel. So the short story is I ended up spending about 12 hours of my time going there, teaching them not only how to use Excel, but, they didn't even have it on the computer at that point.
Wow.
So the short story is I probably burned up the profitability of about 8 or 10 clients by helping this one. And I thought, people like this are in business. They're not in business to learn Excel or how to send something electronically. It would have been just as easy for that woman to pick up the phone and call the hours in for her 10 employees. So that, coupled with the idea that I really always wanted to have my own business, I decided to resign, and I left a perfectly good job to start this company in 2006. And it was a tough journey. I had a big client or two in the beginning, and I thought, wow, this is great. I'm going to be living in a big house in no time. And then 2008, 2009, and 10, the economy really didn't do so well. And there was a time I had about $24 in my checking account.
Wow.
And it was tough. So, and it was just the Brian show. It was me with Harvis trying to develop this new company. And I finally realized that I need to get help, so I hired 3 people, and those same 3 people are still with us today, all these years later, probably going on 12 years.
Fantastic.
And today we have 10 people on staff. We're doing the best we can, trying to grow.
That camaraderie and the development of the communication between the people that wanted to achieve your goals is what got you to where you are today, anyway. And
yeah, with any company, it's the people that are there that make it work.
the IRS has a specific category called PEO. Which is Professional Employment Organization.
Yeah, that's the second arm of the company that we help develop, a PEO, which is a professional employment organization. There's also an ASO model, which is sort of what we do. The ASO model is basically going into the company and bringing everybody on your payroll, but you might not run payroll. You're still charging usually a large fee for everything. And if you look at some of those models and what it costs to run payroll, probably run your payroll with a different provider and get your benefits somewhere else, because there are all these advantages to having a PEO, but the state government has kind of taken all those away. So now what are you getting? When everything is bundled, are you really getting what you need? So is it really included? Ask. Probably isn't.
The challenges of deciphering what you're really receiving as compared to what you anticipated you were going to be getting.
Correct.
What's the future hold for Harvis? What are the next steps?
Well, I think the next steps are always finding new businesses who need help. But I think from the business side, developing out, we have thought about franchising, but in a different way, not the typical franchise model, but more or less if someone wanted to moonlight and they know a client or two or a company or two who could use some help, we could work with them to have them make the introduction, and then they could come on and help in some capacity, because all of our staff, for the most part, are part-time. They're professionals, but they don't want to work full-time corporate. By design, they want to work with us part-time just because that's all they're looking for.
So it's a format of collaboration.
Entirely.
How can our listeners get in touch with Harvis? Tell us where folks can find you.
Well, our website is harvisinc.com. That's HARVISINC.com. And we have a contact page. They can just go to the harvisinc.com website and fill it out and send it in, or you could do a Google search. We have lots of information on there for various jobs we've filled over the years, and we're easy to find.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Really, and I love your personal story as well, because I really think that is the stuff of entrepreneurship, how things came together and how you took the initiative and brought those things together and then took that step to create Harvis. That's really wonderful. Wow, what an enlightening discussion. Really, thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today and for sharing the incredible story behind Harvis Inc. As we wrap up, definitely want to extend a warm Talking Sense with Dollar Bill thanks to you on all our behalf. And now I want to turn it over to you, Dollar Bill, for your final thoughts.
And
our
as
sign-off.
usual, I'm glad to have had the opportunity for this presentation and make your common sense turn into dollar bills.